Hi, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Common Sense Guys channel. How are you all doing today? I was supposed to be on with somebody. They haven't come yet, obviously. Surprised that nobody's in the chat or anything at the moment either, which is a bit interesting in itself for me, to be fair. But I thought that today I would do a little bit of a show with people, see how things are going. See how everybody is as well, to be fair. But at the minute, it seems like I'm on my own. I thought that I would be able to have somebody with me, but apparently not at the minute. So that's always a good thing. So I suppose what I could really do then is generally go straight into the stories, I suppose, which the first story is going to be the gun couple woman, because I'm really interested in this. Now, obviously, being from the UK, I have a little bit of a difference when it comes to how people exercise their defensive capabilities or defensive laws, right? So I do have a little bit of a difference in that sort of understanding. But at the same time, it's, I mean, is it really a case of people are going out of their minds at the minute to go against these couple that has decided that they're going to defend their property? They have decided that they are going to try and, well, I suppose the best way of actually doing it is actually showing everything to you guys rather than me trying to explain it. But I think the interesting part to this is the actual framing of the story. The actual framing of the story is really interesting, especially when you have people from Huffington Post, for instance, that go out of their way to try and frame it a particular way or particular shape or particular application. I find it very interesting. So I'm going to share this page. I want to share that whole video because I want to share this video first with you guys so that we can see how it's being framed and we can see how it actually happened, what's going on, try and go through that type of situation and find out what's going on, I suppose. So without further ado, let me get into the actual video, I suppose. As soon as I work out what I'm doing, because that's always a good thing. Good sign. I haven't been doing this for a while. Let's listen in. It's only about a minute long, and then we'll carry on. To me, that's a bit loud, so I just want to turn it down a tiny bit. If anybody gets into the chat or shares this or anything, then please, by all means, please come through and tell me if it's too loud or too short or too soft, whatever. All right, let's carry on, shall we? So, straight away, news. Armed couple threatens St. Louis protesters. A white couple pointed guns at demonstrators marching to Mayor Linda Cruz's house. Interesting, isn't it, that they don't tell you that they went through a gated community and were actually on their private property at that point in time protesting. Interesting that they don't actually show that, or don't show them asking them to leave or anything else like that, with weapons drawn as well. Mind you, being that they're in a gated community, or supposedly a gated community. So let's carry on and see how the framing of this continues, shall we? So the pair, both white, because this isn't nothing to do with race baiting or anything else to do with that whatsoever. This is completely and utterly to do with racism and how they're framing it. They're like the two white rich people are using their guns to oppress the poor black people that are just fighting for their rights. Now, regardless of what you think about the actual protests themselves, which I agree that they should be protesting, I don't agree, though, that they should break into gated communities, go down private property, and protest outside private properties when they're not supposed to, and by technical definition, if you want to go down that road of law, for instance, they would be technically trespassing. And in my opinion, probably lucky that they didn't get shot. Because if these people were actually racist and were actually trying to oppress these people, don't you think that they just would have shot them rather than ask them to move on or saying, if you come anywhere near my property, we're going to do this or we're going to do that? Interesting, isn't it? Is it a case of them trying to defend their property against people that they know are capable, via a history of protests and riots, that are capable of looting, that are capable of going out of their way to try and denigrate people or try to rob people, beat people, have known to kill people? Is it a case of them actually defending themselves, or is it a case of them actually trying to oppress the protesters? I wonder how the framing of this is actually going. So again, they were shouting at local protesters. So they were obviously warning them off of their property and whatnot. Oh, I see that. I have a guest. I don't have a guest. He decided to go away before he come back in, which is unfortunate. Hello there, Red Feather. How are you doing? It's been a while. It's interesting that I did a video recently, and they haven't actually. Hello there, memes. How you doing, sir?
Oh yeah, no, I just been hanging backstage, and I realized you were into your discussion, and you weren't looking in the back room.
I was unfortunately. I was well in the way. I was 17 minutes into the stream.
That's okay. That's okay. I was late.
To be fair, technically, I was only 7 minutes into the stream because I did a 10-minute intro, as I normally do.
Oh, I heard there was some music. It seemed a wee bit loud, not overly loud, but
it's probably a bit loud.
Is this the St. Louis couple?
It is, yes. Before we go into your actual, one of the main reasons why we're doing News Quest, or you're doing News Quest and all that, before we get into all of that, we do want to do this story first, and then we'll shoot into what you're doing, and we'll move on to other stories if you have time.
Yeah.
So what's your take on this? Because I kind of have the opinion that, from what I've seen and what I've heard, that the protesters themselves broke into a gated community. Now, people may say that they didn't break in. Some people say that they did. Regardless, let's say that they entered a gated community. Let's say they entered. Legally or lawfully, doesn't really matter. They entered. Is it okay for them under, let's say, castle doctrine, or let's say under, being able to defend your home and homestead? Is it okay what they did, in your opinion? Or...
Well, as far as I understand, because I believe New Hampshire, where I worked for around not quite half a decade, they have castle doctrine. But as far as I understand, again, I am not an attorney. Yeah, basically that only holds if somebody breaks into your house. So if somebody kicks in your door, they enter without permission, you can essentially, yes. You can terminate with extreme prejudice, whereas I'm in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We have more of what's known as a duty to retreat. So if somebody kicks in my front door, I essentially need to retreat upstairs into my closet that I'm looking at and basically be lying prone and warning them I have a firearm, according to my recollection.
Okay. I mean, I'm not going...
Is that exactly how it plays out? But basically, you're supposed to warn them and basically say, listen, you're supposed to attempt to keep yourself.
Are you supposed to be like a police officer?
Someone's life. In this case, I don't know, were the protesters on there? I really haven't watched a lot of these videos. I've just kind of seen the quick clips and everything. But as far as I understand, they got into a gated community. The other gate it sounds like it was broken either at that point or later in. And it kind of sounds like they were going by and there was some words exchanged while the couple was eating outside. And as far as I understand, they then went back in and grabbed their firearms. They did not seem to, at least in my opinion, again, I ain't an expert at firearms or anything. I've only been to the range so many times. They
Sure.
did not really seem like they knew what they were doing there. But in response to your question after blow beating for 2 minutes, CSG, castle doctrine typically is if somebody is entering your house. Once they're
Sure.
in your house is your castle. You're allowed to defend it. This kind of seems like they were trying to ward people off.
Sure, but is that still? Now, don't get me wrong. Maybe there's instances in maybe the law's different, but a lot of people trying to go down the road are trying to say that they were going to assault. Like they should be charged with some sort of form of common assault or assault because of
fourth degree assault. Because normally you have assault and battery. Basically, the assault is you're putting fear into somebody, and it usually ends with like a knuckle sandwich or somebody getting hit with something. Actually, you can assault
okay. That's
somebody.
different. That's a different.
I remember learning this a long time ago. CSG is that basically if you are threatening somebody, and again, depends on the laws of the area. Again, I am not an attorney,
Sure,
but
sure.
according to my recollection of this, if you're pointing a firearm at somebody, if you strike fear in them, technically, again, depending on the locale, you may be able to charge someone with assault because from what I saw, it looked like that young lady there. She basically kind of had her finger on the trigger as she was just going around, basically just aiming it like
Yeah,
this.
she did not seem to know.
Don't do that. You do not draw a firearm unless you are ready to use it.
True. No, I'm completely not with you on that one. I don't know. It seems that a lot of people are attacking this from two, let's say, extremes. The two different viewpoints that seem to be completely extremes. A lot of people are going down the road that I would was like, yeah, it's their property. You know, if they're going to go on the property, they have the right to defend the property. Some people are down the other way of saying, well, they shouldn't have even have had the firearms on show because, you know, there was no threat of anything happening. Whatever happened to, you know, understanding the middle, that they were just trying to defend their property. They were just trying to protest. Words were exchanged. Nobody died. Nobody got shot. No shots were fired. What's the goddamn problem?
To kind of tie into what you were kind of saying about NewsQuest and things on the ground there, this is why, again, I haven't watched all this footage, but I think something that folks are kind of confuzzling here is the sheer fact that they hear a private street. Okay, a private street, basically, it is a gated community. Very often, individuals that happen to have a lot of wealth, they don't want to have to deal with the rest of society. They can go into their gated community.
Sure.
In this case, they got in, whether they broke in or the door was left literally open. Somebody ended up letting them in. They got into the community. They were going to protest someone else, I think the mayor or something down there.
They were going to ask for her resignation.
Like there were words exchanged because now you could say that is trespassing. You could. But at the same time, that is also civil disobedience. Now,
I agree.
If they were just walking by and there were some words, you can say that, okay, the protesters shouldn't have been yelling at these folks that were just outside eating and everything. If we do have footage of folks basically coming at them, that might explain more. However, if there were just some words and the folks were walking by and it didn't look like anyone was going towards their house and you just come up with some firearms and start pointing them at people, that, again, it sounds like a lot of these things, people are kind of confused. And then the actions of, it sounds like several people here weren't the greatest.
No, I'm actually completely not with you on that one. I do think it's a case of, especially with this story, I think people are, the demographics seem to be going from extreme to extreme. I want to keep on trying to reiterate that because I've noticed even in my country where we're now talking about when the BBC are talking about the idea of trying to encourage more BAME people into the countryside, even though that the actual TV show themselves was like, no, the BAME community have this preconception. We need to change the BAME community's preconception of this. Somehow that's attacking white people. Now, I can go down a whole diatribe of that because I did a video on it. I don't understand why these people that are supposed to be centrist, that are supposed to be, let's not go down this attack everybody sort of thing. Why is it a case of you're now picking sides?
Oh, well, I mean, well, attacking people is typically more profitable as well because people want to see the folks that they don't like to get basically destroyed in all capital letters and stuff. No, it's just, dude, if you follow the money, that's what makes sense.
I
That's
agree.
why I feel like individuals that basically are like, well, this, that, it's like you only get so much traction until you become the story in some points. And don't get me wrong, I'm a complete narcissist. I love the story being about me, but there's a difference between doing that and maybe just going out of your way to just do that. I mean, yeah, you can go along and just basically proverbially in Minecraft, of course, set off a whole bunch of GD nukes and everything and just see what happens and then kind of just harvest the radiation like Godzilla. You can do that, but before we resort to nuclear weapons, perhaps we should consider some more conventional means. Maybe dealing with things behind the scene rather than trying to turn it into an all-out flame war. It's an option. I'm not saying it's the best option, but Savvy?
No, I do actually understand where you're coming from. I do think that that's something that I have noticed a hell of a lot with the internet. A lot of the internet will call out, let's say CNN, let's say BBC for respective countries, as being bloviated, as in taking one side, as in only reporting the side that they want to report. Aren't you doing the same thing if all you're doing is attacking everything and not actually taking the time to understand where the actual stories are? Because if you're using this story as an instance, if you're completely and utterly under the understanding that the women, the women, the man and the woman, the couple themselves, had every right to defend themselves regardless and even shoot people that were there. If you're of that opinion, for people just walking past your property and maybe having words being exchanged, are you really okay with people being able to shoot up and vice versa? If you're of the protesters' side, are you really of the side of disobeying the law that you want enforced properly and to change while trying to get people to enforce the laws? Now, don't get me wrong, there's hypocrisy on both sides, but both sides don't seem to call out their own hypocrisy. And I always think if you're going to attack somebody else's house, you need to get yours in order first.
Oh, bringing back some Professor Peterson. Apparently, he was on his daughter's podcast last night. I might need to catch up on that. We'll see what happens. I wish the professor and his family well.
Yes.
But just in regards to this, I think you actually bring up something that actually my brother Stats told me a couple of weeks ago, in the fact that he had no idea how many folks in these United States were basically just willing to shoot someone dead over just property damage. Like, and my brother tends to be actually like quite liberal in some respects as well, probably even more of a lefty than me. But at the same time, like the sheer fact that somebody as intelligent as him had no idea that that was the case. And then other folks, like basically we've been in certain circles where it's like, if you're going to violate a person's castle, not understanding the castle doctrine, some folks like that's just their go-to. Whereas maybe if you just live in a state like Massachusetts, maybe California, and like you don't really have as strong a firearm culture as in other states, like that's something your mind never would have realized. So like we're literally coming to a point now where people like, okay, I've lived my life this way. You step on my lawn. Yeah, MC's dropping that freaking carbonadium rod on you or something like that. I love you, MC. But at the same time, it's like other folks are like, no. I realize you're pointing that 22 at me, but wouldn't an ice cream be better or delicious Dunkin's iced coffee? This is not a paid promotion yet.
Not yet. But I mean, let's take the whole US out of the equation, for instance. Let's use the UK for a great example. We've had instances where people like 70-year-olds have actually been taken to court over the fact that while they were being robbed in their own house, in their own home, that they used a screwdriver that was on the side to defend themselves, and they've almost gone to prison because of defending themselves while being beaten up and robbed. I mean, when we talk about the idea of defense, I do think that we actually really do need to have an actual proper conversation about what is actually good, about where we can draw that line of where you can defend yourself and when you can't. Because if we're having conversations where we're literally having stories of people that are going onto their lawn with guns drawn or guns ready to be drawn, while people are just walking past, regardless of if it's gated or not, they technically were just walking past. if they're ready to do that, shouldn't we have conversations and, let's say, training for those types of people to be able to do that and understanding where that defensive line actually is, and for other people to understand where they can't go and cross?
Oh, totally, man. I think people need to know their rights, and I've said this before because when I was doing the real estate training class, the teacher of that class, she happened to be an attorney, and she said that she thought basically every young person should get at least 1 year of law school under their belt to just understand some of your basic fundamental rights. I mean, that just brings up the whole thing about civics again. It's like, are we even teaching this in school anymore? I mean, like, don't we have the technology and everything? Like, these are very important things. And I think this would prevent a lot of our young folks that actually end up in the system to avoid going to the system. I know because it happened to one of my friends because I was a dumbass who went to a party because there was a girl I liked there. And then we ended up leaving because I'm like, the police will be here in 2 hours. We went back to my buddy's house. I'm like, I kind of want to go back. We went back and the police pulled us over because they had already cleared out the party. My buddy was underage and had booze in the trunk, and they asked, could we search the car? He said yes. He did not have to say yes. We did not know that. He went to jail, and then we found him at 2:30 in the morning.
Yeah. But yeah, no.
Arrested. It was terrible.
No, I can fucking imagine. That's the thing about not knowing your rights. Yeah, the police are going to do their jobs and they're going to try and find out the ways of sending people to prison and, trying to, make their numbers look good, because at the end of the day, all jobs are performance jobs and performance related. So, we know that happens.
Well, actually, just going into right what you said, CSG, is that not part of the problem? A lot of the metrics that we're using. Should we judge the police and say they're doing a good job just because they arrested a bunch of people?
No.
I don't know.
No. I'm completely not with you. But then when we look at police stations or police departments, or we look at state departments, we don't look at individual police officers' recordings or, stats. We look at the police department as a whole. So if we see that crime's going down, but the police arrest rate's going up, we don't make that correlation. We don't look at the reasons why the arrest rate's going up and the crime's going down. We don't look at that. We don't see it as an individualistic level anymore because we're too focused on the stats rather than taking it to a point of, say, policy decisions. The main thing that I thought that was going to happen with, unfortunately, what happened to George Floyd was we were all going to have that conversation about police, about what regulations needed to be changed, what training should have been given, maybe the idea of some sort of shifting of funding or increasing of funding, or even a form of either localizing by increasing the power that sheriffs have, or maybe even federalizing more funding towards the police. I'm just saying from an American point of view, I am just some random UK guy.
This falls upon, and I think a lot of the response that we're seeing CSG right now is due to the fact that regardless of whatever side you're on, it's kind of like it's the big sell. Because if you actually read Donald Trump's the whatever the deal, the art of the deal, a book that was recommended to me before he ran for president from one of the smartest, richest women that I know. It basically says you make the big ask. You ask for the moon, and then you hopefully get the end of the block there. Because I think a lot of things, and this is why I think a lot of people hate centrists in a way, colloquially, of course, is that they feel that whatever we ask, you're only going to get a fraction of that. So basically, what are we seeing? We're seeing just continued protests. We have seen riots and everything. We've literally seen a police station burn in this respect. Now, again, you don't commit crime. That's the thing. But I think there's just so much that's been built up and everything. Again, not excusing the crime, but one of the reasons why I think these protests have continued onward is the fact that people want to see true, meaningful change. And now folks are like, oh my God, there's going to be a civil war. Whereas, you know what? If they actually have meaningful change and we can help create a more perfect union, I think that would make a lot of people happy. Again, I think a lot of folks are scared and just they don't know what to do.
See, I would add to that.
These are uncertain times.
See, I can add mostly agree with you, but I would add caveat to that, which is I do agree with you that I think people are scared. And I do think people try to exclude centrists and people of that ilk because I do think that centrists or people that are right of center or left of center or right of center or left of center, those types of people that are not ideologically driven or upholden to a set ideology, people that can be swayed or have compromises, tend to actually try to look for actual, let's say, compromises and solutions to problems rather than it being a case of my doctrine beats your doctrine and fuck everybody else, because that's the way that I see our discourse actually going and why the extremes are pulling us apart.
That could have something to do with it. I tend to be more of the mind of, if somebody thinks the way you do, you tend to have a better idea of how they're going to respond to things. So whether they're on your side or not, we have certain assumptions. It's like, all right, well, if they're on my side, I can talk about these things and we'll probably be comfortable. But if somebody's on the other side, if somebody's a conservative or something, well, we're going to butt heads here. So I don't even want to have to deal with that person. So
Sure.
people at least kind of have maybe, what'd you say, schemas in their head,
Yes.
though,
Yeah.
for what they're thinking. See, I can learn CSG, I can learn. And we have this, but if you try to apply it to a centrist, well, what the hell is a centrist? Well, I think we're all actually different in very many ways. So
Very much
if
so.
you try to apply that, it's like, well, maybe this person believes we should have more restriction on firearms, or maybe this person is pro 2A all the way because standard schemas don't work here.
Yeah.
So I think it does depend on the individual, and whether we like to admit it or not, respect is something that's earned.
No, I mean, I completely agree with you. The thing is, I've noticed, and maybe it's a case of, I think that this is on all sides. So when I say this, I don't think it's a one particular side. I think it's all to do with politics and people that push ideas for political points of view, including myself in some aspects, especially 2-3 years ago when I first come on. We have this, should I say, self-identifying progress of trying to say that we are correct because we've taken the time to think of the stuff that we've thought about, not realizing so is everybody else. That's the reason why when a lot of people have our conversations, I say that loosely, but when a lot of people have conversations, they tend to run off talking points. And you notice that with a lot when you go through, even with myself, I used to do exactly the same thing. So it's not a left side or a right side that does this. I've noticed it completely. But when you actually get into conversations with people rather than debates with people, you actually find, to quote you, Mr. Memes, we're actually more similar than we are different.
Yeah. The thing is, you hit the nail right there on the head, man. When we get into conversations, because what are you doing in a conversation? You're thinking. You're not simply repeating. It's not like, what was it? One of my friends, she was going to school to become a nurse. She had the flashcards because you have all these different drugs, all these different things. That's something where basically you just use it through brute force memorization to know that this is this, this is this. Whereas if you're having a conversation, you're actually discussing like the nuances of a different topic. You're actually getting into the nitty gritty. You're actually sharing life experience with one another. It's like, oh, now your mind's actually going and thinking, because that's the thing that bothered me. This came to light to me probably within the past 3 or 4 years as well, is that literally, whether it's left or right, a lot of these folks just get on a morning conference call, they go over standard talking points, and all throughout the day on all these shows, you hear like the same quotes.
Sure.
Some of this comes from the broadcasters themselves and everything. And sometimes, okay, maybe it's the corporation. These are some of the points they want to hit home, but it's like, can't you just put it in your own words? Like, didn't we take points off for, like, I don't know, plagiarizing?
Repeating the same answer.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
I think no. I mean, I actually agree with you. I think it's more of a case. Let's add to the case, not more of a case. Let's add to it. But yeah, more and adding to it. It does seem that people and media seem to go down this route of trying to make things as bite-sized as possible because of our attention spans not being as quick. If you want something to sell, you don't want a 30-minute, 40-minute video or 60-minute going into depth about something. You want a 15-minute video about somebody going, you're a big poo-poo head and you have dumb ideas. not actually showing why you have them, but just saying you do. We want our confirmation bias.
CSG, it's kind of like, you know what? You should have this boiled chicken and this whole stack of carrots here. Why? Because it's good for you. It will fill you up. It's got all these great nutrients and everything. Versus, here's a banana split. It's got hot fudge. It's got maraschino cherries. It's got all these delicious things on it. And it tastes great. We want things that are delicious to our mind. That's why we love whatever side destroys. Insert name or topic or something here. Because it's a quick dopamine release. Because they're like, oh, they're getting smashed, or something that's confirming my personal biases because it aligns with what I like to believe. Versus, oh God, there's another hour and 53 minutes.
No, I'm completely and utterly with you. And I think that is one of the most major problems that we actually have for political discourse. A lot of people are saying that the left are bad and not really going on their own side. I use that because I don't think the right self-criticize. I think the left have a better way of self-criticizing than what the right does. Because I generally think that when the right kind of sees something badish happening, say for instance Christchurch, you kind of just, yeah, that was bad. We don't do videos on it and say, what, we need to talk about this, why it's going wrong, why everything else, because we think that that belief is similar to our own when we're talking about immigration, rather than it being an actual racist point for like Christchurch. It's too similar, so we don't want to draw comparisons, but that's the point. Because you think it's a comparison, so are other people. Explain why it's not a comparison.
Yeah, and this is where I think a lot of preconceived notions also come from as well. Because I remember, what was it? When Tim Pool was speaking with Mr. David Pakman, the interesting thing is David had the stream listed as debate with Tim Pool, and then Tim Pool just had it as like a chat with David Pakman. So you had different notions about what individuals were getting into there. And then David Pack was just like, oh, you're not a conservative and stuff. And to be fair, if you just click on typically most any channels of Tim Pool, if you go through just with just the titles alone and some of the thumbnails, I don't really get the feeling that he's a lefty. He might be a left-ish person that spends time criticizing the Democrats, but if you look at a lot of his base, it's like, okay, you got a whole bunch of moderates, and you also got a lot of folks that tend to like Trump, or because if you're looking, it's like Democrats end up getting wrecked or stuff like this, or Trump wins this and everything. I'm like, okay, and my big thing with Mr. Poole, it's like, okay, if you're going to cover the tweet where Tulsi Gabbard, quote unquote, nukes Hillary Clinton from orbit, you're doing a video on a tweet.
Yeah.
Okay, you dedicate a whole video to that.
Yeah.
The president literally tweeted out a dude man in like a 15, 20-second clip saying, white Powerpuff Girls minus the girls. And I'm like, all right, you mentioned that in passing over like 5 to 10 seconds of one of your videos talking completely about something else. Where's the one video on that? Where's the one video?
Yeah.
And this is the problem here, man, because I feel like Tim's almost painted himself into a little bit of a corner there in a way, in that if he goes after like the Republicans very heavy, because what does he say? It's exactly what you just said. He's like, oh, the Republicans are silly. The Republicans are ineffective. But oh, Trump is boorish and everything. Well, you're going around calling Cory Booker and other folks, these people are evil and everything. Not quite the same gravitas and everything. That was kind of like Donald Trump frickin' wishing John McCain a happy campaign. God rest his soul. It's like, you could tell, at least from what I remember, in my opinion, of course, he didn't mean it. There was nothing there. Where was the passion? It's like, technically, yes, you said it, but even though the words came out of your mouth, that's not what you're communicating to me right now.
Yes, like, it seems that you have a kind of a, let's say, a bias that you're, or an audience that you, oh shit, can't say that.
Well, this is the problem, man, is because I literally think he would probably lose subscribers.
Yes, definitely.
Not in his self-interest. Because if
I lost 10.
He's like,
I've lost 10 for my BBC video.
Tweet. All of a sudden, in a lot of people's minds, their schema is Tim says nice things about Trump. Tim doesn't hate Trump. Tim say not nice thing about
Tim,
Trump.
my side.
Tim, bye, Tim. Now again, that's not how it necessarily works, but at least that's how my neurons fire in my mind to try to explain it and put it in my position, because I found myself in that position before.
Oh yeah, no, but as you and other people would quite rightly call me out for, when you're having literally half an hour debate on whether George Washington's teeth were bloody wooden or bloody hippopotamus or human, you kind of miss the whole point.
It was about an hour and 6 minutes.
Yeah, that was the whole stream.
No, the stream was like 2 hours and I think 16 minutes maybe.
But that's exactly the point. When I was doing things like that, I was getting more and more subscribers. When I was actually challenging people's biases about the thing about the BBC, for instance, about why are you saying this is attacking white people when it's blatantly, obviously trying softly to change prejudice or preconceptions that comes from the BAME community, why is it that you're attacking me, trying to say that you're defending the racist BBC? You know the videos what I've done on the BBC. I don't like the BBC. I think that they're biased in their reporting. I have also done videos on defunding the BBC because I don't like them. But does that mean that I have to keep on saying that when they do something good, that I can't say that they've done something good now? Apparently so. Apparently I can't say, look, you're getting this wrong.
I don't want to just say hashtag capitalism, but I mean, hashtag capitalism, it's you let the people decide. I think this will end up changing because a lot of folks on the internet, we've pushed the edge just because, well, it's the internet. The law always lags behind technology. This is just something that happens. So who do you get on the internet? A lot of the folks that, at least in my case, we got tired of yelling at the TV. So I'm like, oh, let's go onto the internet and yell at people. So it's like, we tend to be maybe more on the edges. It's starting to encompass more and more people now. But the sheer fact that this is happening, I think more not progressive or conservative, but more pragmatic individuals that basically just either have a track record or just folks that can speak to a vast number of people. Because I think it was on the Dark Horse podcast, I think was it Heather Haying, Dr. Haying, Brett Weinstein's wife. She happened to be saying that it's like, okay, if you look at a lot of the extremes, you got maybe like 7 or 8% on either end of the distribution there that are the very loudest and everything. That means it's like 86% of us that are in the very broad center, maybe more left, maybe more right. But if that encompasses the vast amount of folks, it's like, oh, so it's just the people on the fringes just kind of like just lining each other up and taking pop shots. Okay, those people and certain folks to certain degrees will support it. But once you get the vast number of folks basically paying attention to more to the internet than they are just like cable or something like that, it's like, okay, now you're seeing a shift of the money as well. So, I mean, we could just do the same old things again, but I think once people start getting more engaged and we actually learn what other people think, because that's the thing, dude. If you look at a video that has 100,000 views, might have like 20,000 likes, 5,000 comments. My big thing's always been, it's just like, that's great. I'm interested in what's going on. What about the 75,000 people that didn't like or comment? What do they think?
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm actually with you on that one. I think it's really interesting that when we have the power of the extremes, as you quite rightly pointed out, it does seem to go down that road of that those who scream the loudest are the ones that are heard the most. And we see that on the left when people screech about the blue-haired feminists in the corner, and we're now seeing that about the people on the right and everything else like that. So we're actually seeing it from both sides, and we're seeing that pendulum kind of shift from side to side at the minute. For me, I always see that when people are shouting the loudest on the internet, I don't actually see them coming up with any ideas as a form of compromise of being able to sort things out. Now, I'm not trying to say that I think Tim Pool or Sargon of Akkad or Vash or even Destiny would want to come up with people with the ideas of changing policy. But as well, apart from Destiny, I think the other three are more interested in grifting on their side. I would actually say Destiny does actually challenge his... If he has a principle, he generally sticks to it, which is one of the main reasons why I actually like Destiny. Not on all of his points, admittedly, but I do like him because he sticks to his actual premise and his principles rather than trying to deviate. But before I get sidetracked onto that, I do actually find it.
I mean, I don't really watch much Sargon anymore. Vash, I don't think I've only heard a clip from like one of his debates, or
Sure.
Somebody was complaining about him on the internet, of course. But as far as I know, I mean, are these individuals, are they I don't know, is grifting strong? I mean, is this basically just their job at this point? I mean, you might not like that the fact that their job exists, but I mean, internet commentator is a job. I mean, just
sure, but when I say grifter
and everything.
No, I agree. But when I say grifter, I mean somebody that is sticking to talking points they know they're going to get more people on their side to follow them. I don't mean that they're grifting because they want to get more money or anything else like that. I actually think most people that are on the internet are not necessarily doing it for money. They're more doing it for fame and recognition. I think it's that simple when it comes to human consumption.
I like money. Dragons.
No, I like money. No, I do like money.
No, I hear you, but at least in this age, we also live in the age where internet fame has a certain way that as soon as you figure out how to monetize, you can do it. Because and this is my problem. We've incentivized so many poor things. I mean, what's the reason why so many children were eating Tide Pods? Don't get me wrong, they really did look kind of tasty, and occasionally I was like, you know what? If this wasn't full with a whole bunch of chemicals that will probably kill me, I might actually try to lick this. Do not eat Tide Pods, ladies and gentlemen. It's 2020. We got more important things to worry about. But the sheer fact with all of this, I'm like, wait a second. I can do something stupid, and I'm probably going to end up on social media getting tens of thousands, maybe 100,000. Maybe I'll get a million views or something. That's going to translate out. Now people's eyes on me. Now, if I keep the people entertained, now I got my ticket to fame. And you know what? If a lot of folks are down on luck, that doesn't sound like a pretty bad thing. I've considered it many times. I've been talked out of it by smarter people than me. And I'm like, oh, why, thank you. Because it doesn't necessarily last. That's the thing. It's like, when do you become socially discovered and everything? It's like an individual like Professor Peterson. Yeah, he'd been putting his lectures online for a good number of years. He had like 1 million views. And then he came out against Bill C-16. Yep. And then it's like, all right, he's a very influential speaker. He's very charismatic. I mean, again, I'm still only halfway through his first book, but I feel like I've learned a lot from him as well. Well, at the other time, it's like, okay, you could just be a person of happenstance. I'll be straight up. Was it when I went to the rally to restore Sandy and or turtles, because politics aren't binary, which was held on the same day as the Straight Pride Parade and the Let's Take Back Our Pride events. And I actually met a gentleman who actually ended up marrying the girl that had the original, what they call it, the Triggly Puff video. She was the girl that actually put it. She was originally offered basically a job at, I think, maybe Vice, maybe Rebel Media or something like that, a Canadian company. And I'm like, oh, well,
Vice,
why?
then.
Oh, she had a video with like millions of views. All right, then. But what ended up happening? It's like, I emailed them. She's like, I never heard back. I'm like, oh, did you follow up? She's like, no. I'm like, well,
that'd probably be why.
Pretty busy back then. No, but this is the thing, man. A lot of times it's like, okay, maybe they're not interested in me. Maybe they weren't interested. Maybe they were interested and they just got really busy and everything. It's like, this is the thing. It's like a lot of folks. It's like some folks are like, well, I don't want to be a dick. Other folks are like, I don't give a damn if I'm an asshole. I'm just going to do this. So in some ways, they'll call that either grit, go getting this or that. But a lot of folks aren't necessarily like that. They want other folks to let them know it's like, okay, you can do this now. Whereas other folks are like, I'm just going to do this and I'm just going to whatever. Oh, God, I was going into a bad Southern accent. I have no idea. Apologies for my racism, brothers.
Yeah. Very, very much so. But I do think it's very interesting because we were talking about the idea of going viral. And if you, for instance, when Night Jensen, take care, mate. If you take, for instance, when people started getting more and more famous, let's take Sargon's rise, for instance. He got mostly noticed because of his rantings about Anita Sarkeesian. Mostly. Not that he went out of his way to chase after or anything, but that's the reason why he generally got noticed. Because he was ranting against feminism and so on and so forth. But then his channel stagnated because there's only so much ranting you can do. So then you start going after your, I don't want to say blood sports, because at that point in time it wasn't blood sports. He wanted to talk to people. And then he got into the point of turning that into blood sports. And then blood sports become a good thing. And then it wasn't a case of actually having discourse anymore. And when we do see internet culture actually go into real life, where now people don't want to talk to each other, we shout at each other, we try to score points. You know, Caitlin Bennett, for instance, and the shit girl, for instance, the gun toting girl. She's always horrible. I agree with you. I do think that, but maybe she does have some points and she has some grievances. Maybe it would be better to hear her out and find out what's actually the problem and work out compromises. Maybe it's a good idea to start talking to these people that you think are causing problems. And in that way, you don't actually take away their platform of they're not listened to, they're not oppressed, because you're listening. You know how that works.
my big thing was with CSG. I'm just like, and again, proverbially in Minecraft, if their shit don't, pardon my French, if they don't hold water, just let them, just keep on handing them the rope.
Yes.
Just let them speak and everything.
Yep.
See, my thing, and this is why I consider myself more of a leftish person, it's like, oh, I actually do think we have the better ideas and everything. So it's like, if I hear the other person out, I understand where they're coming from. I can formulate my policies in a way that maybe they don't love it, but do they hate it that much that they're going to be filibustering and reading Dr. Seuss on the House floor? Probably not. If you were, and this is the thing that bothered me about some of my lefty comrades, because I was on a breadcast. And I'm listening there, and I'm like, oh, we can defeat conservatives using their principles against them. And a comrade just is like, he just comes to me, he's just like, by lying to them, ? And I'm like, it made me so sad. I'm like, do you not have faith in our actual side? It's like, dude, we could actually do this. We could actually have just like substantive change. It's just, and I always give this example. It's like, all right, here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, we had Romney Care. And it's like, all right, how did we do that? It's like, oh, we paid for it. We made $1 billion in cuts. They were deep cuts, but it gave us the surplus to pay for it. If you actually take away the conservative argument, yeah, sure, a Republican will still say, if they want to, it's like, oh, we can't have this. But what's the thing? It's like, oh, so you don't want folks down on their luck to get health care to help keep, just give them a little bit of freedom, maybe not tie their health care to their job so they have more economic mobility, take away maybe some of the burden off the employer from having to provide health care, freeing up operating expenses to use either investment in plant or their actual people. I'm like, that sounds like a pretty capitalistic argument to me. I don't know.
No, I mean, with the idea of American healthcare, I've always thought that having a two-tier system in America would be the best way for Americans to be able to go down. As in having a government-based...
It's a public option. It's a public option. The way you boil it down, there is a public option. And it kind of, I think maybe we could do something kind of like the NHS, because the way Cabby, God rest his soul, explained it to me, it's like, okay, you had your base NHS coverage. You could go out there and get private coverage, and guess what? Basically, all the money that would go towards the NHS goes towards your premiums and stuff. The way he explained it, I'm like, that actually sounds like it makes sense.
Well, yeah, but we still have the ring tax that still goes into it, regardless of if you pay your premiums for private healthcare or not. But I do understand your point, and I think that's actually I think it's a very valid point. And I think with the idea with Americans, I think that they're so against socialist ideas or social ideas. Let's go with that, because I don't even think that healthcare in that instance is a socialist idea. I think it's more of a socialized idea, but regardless of that terminology, if you go down the idea that tax isn't theft, Because obviously, if you get to a certain point, then people are just going to go down that way, and you're just not going to win that type of argument with those types of people because it's just not going to happen. But if you can have the conversation with people about taxation and things like that, what is wrong with putting the idea of a ring tax into the idea of as you quite rightly said, a government option of a form of insurance? Because that way, private insurances will have to compete with government insurances, because government insurances are nowhere near going to be as high as private insurances. So they're going to have to counterbalance each other. And they're always going to have to compete, because if the private one doesn't get as good coverage as what the government one does, who the hell wants to pay extra? But if the government one's too bad, more people are going to go for the private regardless. So maybe have actual capitalism and actually fight against each other.
This is the thing. I'm just like, it feels like sometimes that some conservatives and Republicans, they just seem to be allergic to taxes. Like if you say that, because I don't even know what that ring tax is there, but just my inner like fiscal conservative is like, it just like triggers
just
something
very
within me.
Very, very quickly. The thing is with a ring tax is that when you have taxes that come out of your paycheck, there is a ring tax that goes directly and wholeheartedly to the NHS. It is a separate tax that is just completely set up from when you get paid straight into the NHS. Doesn't go into any other government funding or any government backing. Just goes straight into the NHS.
Well, I mean, we essentially have that. It's called like Medicare.
No, I agree.
This is the thing. Like every paycheck, they take out Medicare and stuff. And this is the thing that bothers me. It's like, okay, well, how are we doing this? It's like, we will bump up the Medicare tax to pay for healthcare for everybody. Like, isn't that the simplest way to say it if we're going to try to make that pitch rather than trying to explain this or that? Or you put up a little financial calculator or something and be like, okay, how much? Because that was the thing that Bernie Sanders tried to get over pretty much. Well, he's like, okay, yes, you'll have more taken out of your paycheck, but your deductibles go away. It's like, he should have just gone full on Ross Perot at that point and just had like the little like whiteboard there. He's like, all right, you get this much money, this, boom, boom, overall, you win.
Yeah, but the thing is with people like you and me, maybe I don't put myself in the same category, maybe you don't, but with people that would take the time to look at the maths, see that it actually works and can be done, people would just see quickly big numbers, think that's going to cost me money, regardless of actually reading it, regardless of actually taking the time to understand it, and go, nah, costs too much.
Well, that's the problem. It can't be complicated. It literally needs to be like a meme of just like, here's a stick figure family, here's a little block house, and it's like, your premium this, all right, $500. You take out this, here's your healthcare here. You just change the numbers, and then you have in big bold letters the difference.
Sure.
Just that. You got to keep it as simple as possible. Even if it's overly simple, just be like, example, boom, look, happy little house drawing. And it's like, it needs to be memorable and stuff. Because when you critical somebody with a massive wall of text, man, it's like, I'm sorry, man. It hurts. It hurts my soul right there. I still might read it sometimes, but...
Sure, I mean, that's just with text. Yeah, but that's just with text. Imagine if it was a case of them putting it down into a video form, so it's only a 10-minute video. Probably wouldn't even need 10 minutes. But something very simple, something similar to like when... Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that this was a good thing by Ocasio-Cortez, but AOC. But when she did the video about the Green New Deal, now I don't agree with the idea of it, but the cartoonish animation, the way of trying to simplify everything and bringing everything down to an easier level, I think that was something that could work as the idea of how you advertise political solutions to people. Now, again, I completely disagree with the idea of the Green New Deal, so don't think that I'm supporting that of her. But the idea of how she actually produced it, or how people around her produced it, I thought it was actually well done, to be honest with you.
It's conceptually, it's a great idea. I didn't actually see the video in question. That probably would have made me even more turned on to it. But at the same time...
Just because I said AOC doesn't mean you need to say turned on.
What?
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
know.
she's an intelligent, attractive young congresswoman. I mean, she's
She's a
taken
woman.
and
That's enough for
everything, but
you.
that's
She's a woman. That's enough
well,
for
no.
you.
We're talking about the idea here, not the person. Now, anytime the Democrats try to slip in the cow fart tax, the Republicans can beat you over the head proverbial all day with it. That's the thing, man. Because this isn't the first time. This is not
I
the
know.
first time, because I remember I think Sean Hannity brought it up the last time during the Obama administration. They tried to slip in the cow fart tax. Now, to be fair, our bovine brethren do emit a lot of methane. This
They
is
do.
True. However,
do.
the sheer fact that you're essentially literally doing a cow fart tax. They can call you on it. They can call you on it, and people will laugh about it, and then we end up back here.
Well, the thing is with that, I know the right will go, oh, it's a slippery slope, and maybe there's an argument for it. If you're going to tax cow fart air, how do you measure how many cow farts have been done for the year, or the month, or the week? And if you can do that,
I think they can measure it.
It's estimates.
On the ingestion,
it's estimates.
The size of the cow.
Yes, it's estimates.
We've put shrimp on treadmills to gain data. We've studied a whole lot of crap.
I know.
I think we have the average farts per year of a cow.
No. I agree. You probably can do. But the point that I was making, not the fact of how you measure it, but once you measure it and you tax it, can you do that with water? Can you do that with air? Can you do that with wind? Oh, wait. Didn't they try and tax wind? Didn't they try and actually do that?
We do keep track of water usage. We do keep track of electric usage. There are things. I think we're going to be into the age of data will become a commodity as well. This is very interesting, but there are a lot of solutions, and I realize that I think what was it at the time the National Libertarian, aka Porpoise, he calculated out with some rough calculations. I'm like, wait a second. So if we want to do everything within the next 10 years, it's going to be what, $108 trillion? Oof. I mean, before I thought that was poppycock, but at the rate we're spending money now,
yeah,
we might spend that in 10 years.
True, especially with
it away.
No. I mean, I get that. I mean, the thing that I find so interesting with today's conservatives, and yeah, I'm going to pick on the conservatives for a change, but the thing that I do find really interesting with conservatives, especially with things to do with COVID, they're so busy arguing the toss about whether or not it's constitutional for them to be advised to stay in or to be prohibited from going out to try and actually, save people's lives, that they're too busy trying to talk about the idea of actually saving people's lives rather than actually just, saving them. Do what you actually think is correct, common sense, but stop arguing just because you're going along the lines of, well, they're trying to take my rights away. They're asking you to begin with, and then because you didn't, they had to put it into a form of law.
Yeah. No, I was listening to Governor Newsom over in California before. That's kind of basically the gist of what he says. He's like, enforcement. He's like, can we enforce this on 40 million people? He's like, no, of course we can't. He's like, we prefer to just, you go through it with an educational perspective first. And if you need to enforce it by law, you try to go out basically after the actual folks. They're just doing a blatant disregard. And basically what I took away from that, basically being assholes and jerks about it, because and CSG, let me ask you this. If President Trump came out and said, and I quote, this Chinese virus is a bioweapon. Here's the thing. Let's entertain the idea. If the president came out and said this was a biological weapon, do we think more conservatives would be wearing masks?
No, I actually agree. I think that they would actually be wearing more masks, but my point to them would be, if Donald Trump actually thought that was a biological weapon and you believe that it's a biological weapon, the Chinese are not as advanced as you think they are if it's only, a 0.8% death rate?
Well, we don't know the long, long-term effects, and nobody ever said it was fully completed. But
my point was actually to
the whatever furlong spike or something.
My point wasn't what the death rate is. My point wasn't what the death rate is. It was a fact of how low it was, regardless if it was biologically engineered to kill people or to make them ill, it's not a good job.
Well, I
It
mean,
could be worse.
Well, the other thing too is if it also had an extremely, like an Ebola-like death rate where you're talking upwards of 50%, like the virus also, it would spike and then it would just stop because those people, a lot of them would just be dead. That's the other thing.
Sure.
Propagate.
Again, my point wasn't a case of how good or bad COVID is at the minute. It was a case of entertaining the idea of if it was a biological weapon. Because I've actually heard that as it being biologically engineered to go out and kill people and set out by the Chinese. It's not something that I personally agree with, and I've entertained quite a lot of conspiracy theories over the decades that I've been alive. But that's one of them that I can't entertain.
I gave my leg a cramp. Continue.
But I suppose what we can do is move on from the idea of all that type of stuff with COVID anyway. It's not that type of stream, and I'm more interested in the ideas of what you were saying about this News Quest, about the idea of trying to set up News Quest and how you're going to get independent people to be able to send you, like, not you, but News Quest themselves as a website or as a Discord server, stories, videos, actual information, bypass the actual media itself or the biased media to actually get it straight from the horse's mouth and actually get paid for sending in videos as well while you're doing it. I mean, you can obviously explain it better than what I can because it's your idea.
Right. Well, as it starts right now, the whole idea is basically one that we're completely ripping off from CNN. Because I remember not probably about 6 or 7 years ago, you could be a CNN citizen journalist. And it's like, if you have footage of something, a storm, a story, something, send it to us. And then over the past number of years, I haven't seen that. So I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to rip off SideQuest from Magog. I'm just going to add news to it. So it's News Quest. What the hell is News Quest? It's citizen journalism unleashed. So how do we go about that? Well, if a lot of folks have phones, if they have cameras, if they have the ability to record things, it's like, well, this is a lot of the footage we're looking at anyway. We have the technology. It's like, okay, we'll just upload it. Because what's one of the problems? One of the problems we have is you're seeing like a 15-second clip for maybe like a 2-hour live stream. There's so much more context going on. So the idea is basically, okay, if we have folks on the ground, if folks are doing this anyway, you can upload it to a site where we're going to aggregate it. We're busy working and updating the site and everything and actually getting it built. We have an individual who is a mobile developer as well, who's going to be helping us as well on this. Right now, we have the Facebook page, we have the YouTube channel and everything. And we're basically going to create an archive of raw footage. So basically the footage that's taken there. And what we'll do is to help advertise. Yeah, we'll take those clips and everything. Dude, one of our first clips is literally an individual we had down in Chicago that uploaded. He got shot at a 2-hour live stream.
Fuck.
Like, he was at the protest, the mobile protest down in Chicago about a month or so ago.
Damn.
And as we're watching the footage, I went back and watched it and I clipped a portion out of it. It's literally, he's saying a whole bunch of derogatory things about communists and everything. That is true. And then all of a sudden, a car that was in front of him waved him up. He pulls up next to it. You see an individual lean out and they brandish what looks to be a pistol. And right as they're driving by, it's discharged. Now, in my opinion, it kind of looked like it may have been an accidental discharge. But here's the thing. You had a very nice Cadillac, literally an individual lean out and discharge a firearm at a political rally where the mayor literally said, you can come here, but don't bring your firearms to avoid that exact situation.
Yeah.
So that happened. So we did catch that and everything. So the whole idea is, okay, we have all these commentary channels and folks slicing and dicing the news every which way. And folks saying, well, we need the truth because we're in a flood, a deluge of opinion, if you would. So it's like, okay, well, if there's a need, whether it's left or right or any side, it's like, okay, well, we want to be the aggregation of just raw footage for
you want to be the library, basically. You want to be the library, the archive.
Exactly. We want to be the wizard's tower, if you would, where basically all the knowledge is stored and everything. And then rather than charging like thousands of dollars, this or that, if you would like to use our footage for whatever purpose, you join. $5 a month. $5 a month, you have access to our entire archive of footage. Plus, it also allows you to do quests, if you would. What are quests? Now, CSG, all I know is if I'm watching people give 50, 100, $500 super chats to commenters or commentators that they like on the internet, I'm pretty sure there's a market for folks spending 50, 100, or $500 for folks to go to, I don't know, a rally or something, get like half hour, an hour of footage, and maybe interview like 3 people. You can set a quest there. And as the individual completes those quests, one, they're getting paid. 2,
Yeah.
we take our processing and everything. We're going to keep it as transparent as we can. So it's going to be similar. It's like Patreon or something. But that person also ranks up. Then go from like a 1-star journalist to a 2-star, this, that, as you complete more and more quests. You get community feedback, and maybe we'll toss a little bonuses in here and there as we actually get cash revenue coming in. It's like, oh, you leveled up. Maybe we'll give you some goodies or something. I don't know. Maybe some branded stuff. I don't know. Maybe occasionally, if we actually get some money going, maybe a nicer camera or something. I mean, that would be cool. But I feel like $5 a month, it's almost more like the old school guild structure, something like a game like Skyrim. It's like, all right, you got to do this, but now you get bonuses and stuff. So now you're part of a community. And if we have the ability to do that, basically what we're trying to do is incentivize people to do good work. That's basically it.
No, I mean, I completely not agree with that. I think that that's a good thing. I mean, the only thing that I would kind of suggest is the idea of being able to have a free version, as in a light version, if you will, where you don't have access to all of the archives, but you have access to some of like certain situations
well, the
and
little thing
whatnot.
is right now we're free.
Oh yeah, no, I meant
Because
in
I
the
mean,
future.
we haven't built. We have a back end line for business that one of our individuals already has, and he's going to rig together probably, I don't know, 10 terabytes of hard drives and stuff like that. So up to probably around 1,000 to 5,000 users, we should be pretty good, or at least up to about 1,000 or so. Because it's also not like YouTube where it's like you got like hundreds, if not thousands, of people just streaming nonstop, whatever. It's like, okay, you can upload, but it needs to be news style events. So we're going to have certain things. If you're just uploading BS there, it's all right. So what we're going to do is basically right now, tentatively, of course, the first 1,000 people that are basically contributing to NewsQuest, we're going to grandfather them in. So what's going to happen is once we get up to 1,000 people, then we're going to be starting to make at least newer things going to the archive. That's going to be behind the $5 paywall. So as of right now, we're just going to kind of aggregate data, basically start to get our name out there. And then again, like once we get up to like the 1,000 user mark, it's like, well, we have 1,000 contributors and stuff. It's like 1,000 people. It's like, does CNN have that many reporters? Does Fox News have that many reporters? And these are just citizen journalists. And what we're going to try to do is set a high standard of work ethic. Because yeah, we might be citizen journalists, but we have to have some standards.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we work at this on the website, that every time you submit something, it's going to be a little form where it's like, who, what, when, where, why.
Yeah.
How, if you would like to give your opinion. But that's the thing. It's like, oh, what a novel idea. We're going to try to aggregate the facts. Because what we can also do from that is, as we're aggregating the facts, it's like, let's say there's a news story and it says, well, this happened here. Okay, maybe you had one angle there, but we actually had 3 people at that same event. So one angle shows what you saw, but the other 2 show what happened right before that. It's like, yeah, that person slugged that person. What happened before? That other person pulled a knife on them, but you couldn't see the knife in the other thing. So we also have the ability to debunk people utilizing our numbers. So if we can also aggregate just certain keywords, such as who, what, when, where, and why, if someone gives you something completely out there, it's like, okay, well, that's not what this said. It might be true, and if we can be corrected, that's perfectly fine. But we're going based upon what we see. And when folks have access to that information, you can commentate and give your opinion to as much as you want, left, right, up, down, doesn't matter to us. Just give us our $5.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually a really good thing, especially with people that are coming out of their way to say that CNN are biased or Fox are biased or any news organization is biased. Well, if you come to an archive and you do exactly what you say, where you're propagating where, when, how, and whatever, then you can't actually really go. You can't really make that bias, because if you have 4 videos that are showing different angles at different lengths of time and so on and so forth, then you're going to have the full picture. So people are going to actually see the archive, see what's going on. Yeah, they can cut the videos up and do what they want with them, as you said, if they're paying the $5 or whatever, they can do what they want afterwards. But the actual evidence is right there, and it can never get taken away or anything else like that. So if people say, well, this racist did this thing, no, he didn't. He did it because he was attacked. Or, yeah, no, you're completely and utterly right, but this is what happened beforehand. So, yeah, that's absolutely amazing. Be an actual impartial fucking news organization. Actual news. In other words,
Well,
citizen news.
Right. And that's the thing. It's like, we literally have the technology. We're using it right now. Is it as fancy as maybe like a 4 or 8,000K, whatever camera that CNN, Fox, MSC, as they have? No. But you know what? We can get better. We have the technology and we have the scalability. And I think there's at least finally the will for this. Just because before it's like we said, we all want to have that banana split or whatever just floats your boat there. But at the same time, maybe sometime you should have that boiled chicken and some carrots. Because all I know is Bugs Bunny always asks, "What's up, Doc?" And he often had a carrot. But I digress.
No, I think it's actually interesting, because everybody's been moaning for such a long time about the idea of impartiality, and that there isn't anything impartial. Because I think if you take away the ability of proper grifters, people that are so sent or centerized into the idea of they must produce their own opinions, and this goes for all sides, any sides, whatever side, but you have a way of actually challenging them on actual what physically happened on the social commentary status, rather than it being on a political basis or on a basis of statistics or anything else like that. You on the social commentary basis, on the idea of reporting news, what happened, you actually have a way of going, this is actually what happened. These weren't done by people that are trying to get a political agenda. They were just there at the time. They've got 4 or 5 different views, depending on how many people were there or how many people decided to put their videos up into the actual archive, so to speak. Nobody can really go against that then. The media can't spin a narrative, because if the archive got big enough, people would just go, well, that's not what happened. Here's what happened. So then it would actually, I'm not trying to play it up to a point of going, well, this could change everything. But in a way, guys, it can.
Well, the big thing, right? Well, the big thing is, it's like we're also not trying to destroy the media. We're just trying to be a resource for the media. If CSN or MSNBC, and we've had discussions about this before, it hasn't fully been finalized yet, because I'm not the only person on this project. We're just like, oh, well, if CNN wants a clip, we'll charge them like $10,000. I mean, that's my gut reaction, because I'm like, oh, big guys, this and that. But at the same time, part of me is like, that kind of feels like extortion. So it's like, if we just set a price, it doesn't matter, as long as you remember. Because, I mean, it will get out there anyway. I mean, we're probably going to have a watermark and stuff before that. But there are ways we can actually do this. And it's like, as long as you're not charging an arm and a leg, it's like, people will pay, because we've seen, like, people pay for like a good digital copy of a movie. I'll spend $5 to watch freaking like Avengers Endgame or something like that. If you're going to charge me like $30-$40, it's like I may cruise around the internet or something like that. I'm not saying that I have, but I probably totally have. This is the thing. If you can offer a quality product for something that's reasonable, and you're transparent as possible, and you actually incentivize folks, because this is the thing, it also gives people something to do. It's like, I'm just trying to incentivize like things that I'm doing, because also I also like money. It's like President Trump was having a rally in Manchester. I was working in Manchester at the time. I literally just park at another site for my old job. I walk half a mile down, and I get a bunch of interviews and stuff like that. I had like Dr. Shiva. I got him for like 5 or 6 minutes there. That's all we did. If somebody was going to pay me for that, I'd probably be even more likely to do it. So we're just we're giving folks a way to earn a living, get their names out there, and just help folks find the truth.
No, I mean, I completely and utterly agree with everything that you said, but because of my childish nature, I need to do something because we do have the technology. We can rebuild him. I'll turn that down first.
Steve Austin, astronaut, a man barely alive. Gentlemen, we can rebuild him. We have the technology. We have the capability to make the world's first bionic man.
That's where we got the bionic redneck from, because it is Steve Austin. Your audio driver's back on the video, man. Yeah, you need to switch her back over. Your voice isn't coming through right. There you go.
I'm back. I'm back. Oh my god, I'm back.
Beautiful. Bravo, sir.
Yes.
But yeah, I think we've been going definitely over an hour, because here's the thing, man. I think we should keep the show generally brief as we can. I know it's getting a little late over there, and I also got to go cut another video and go for a run and stuff. So make dinner.
Sure.
But,
I was just wondering then, before you do go,
you want to kind of just wind down on?
Yes, I was going to ask you what your opinion is of Chaz Chop now being, should we say, destroyed?
It's being chopped. As far as I understand, again, I really haven't seen the video. From what I saw from a gentleman who I actually boosted with his permission, of course, who lives in Seattle, that was there. He was there during the day. Seemed to have a fairly festive atmosphere. He's like, I did smell some marijuana around and everything, but people were generally cordial and everything. It was an experiment. Like I said, man, the world was watching, but as soon as you start getting all these homicides, man, and stuff like that, man, especially in Seattle, because Seattle, dude, my brother-in-law's there. It's a really chill area. As far as I understand, they got like 12,000 complaints because they were using tear gas and stuff from a lot of the residents. They stopped, and basically they gave it a shot, and now you have bodies. So,
yeah, I just thought that I always try and go to the sources. You know, I try and archive what's happening. Yes, there was a little bit of a plug there, but yeah, I went straight to the Seattle Police Department, and the fact of they actually put out a blotter as well, which is a way of being able to put everything that's just been happening into one frame as well, and the actual original letter with it. And yeah, basically what you just said is completely and utterly true. But this actually comes from Mayor Jenny Durkin, which I'm sure you would remember was actually in support of the idea of Chaz at that point in time being up and operational, so to speak, but has now realized that, as you quite rightly said, because of the situation that is there and the violence that is going on, she's decided that she is going to force the police to close it down. Obviously, everybody remembers the spat that the police chief had with herself and the mayor. It was very interesting.
Now, quick, to be fair, my stepbrother is from there. He's actually invited me out before. Something akin to the Chaz Chop really wasn't out of the question, because to be fair, my stepbrother invited me over because he has a several-day major block party at his house where basically the entire block, it's just a nonstop party.
Sure.
Things like this do happen in Seattle, but like I said, I mean, the world is watching, and as soon as you start piling bodies, man, it's just, I'm
sure.
sorry.
I mean, I really want to put down a foundation here and actually say I completely agree with you with the idea of a block party. Maybe it takes the issue of being a week or 2 weeks or maybe even a month of being separate, so to speak. But it's not them actually coming out and saying, "Look, we are no longer part of the United States of America. We're actually going to be our own thing. We're going to be
Well, that's
autonomous."
why I thought it went from the autonomous zone to the OP. Because if it's an occupied protest, that's more like the Occupy Wall Street protest, whereas the other one was like in Family Guy when Peter Griffin secedes from the Union and becomes Pretoria.
Sure,
And we
but
all remember when that rocket was aimed right at him.
sure, no, I completely totally agree. But the reason why, obviously, Chaz was changed to Chop, obviously, as you quite rightly just stated, one was an autonomous zone and the other one is a occupied protest. But the point that I'm probably trying to get through is when it was an autonomous zone, the mayor was actually supporting it. In other words, she was actually supporting a form of succession from the United States. She was actually okay with it. That's the point where I'm trying to go forward. But one of the reasons why they stopped for being an autonomous zone is because they realized that ambulances don't go into places that are not the US, even when they're getting shot at.
I had heard a number of things. Again, it's messy. People have fucking lost their lives. Pardon my French. I'm thinking for the mayor's spot, it's like, okay, the next day it's like over, because my stepbrother even said like there was chaos down there for like several days and stuff. And when I had mentioned that, oh, well, the police left the precinct, he went on to the Seattle Times, which is their major publication down there. And there wasn't anything like that following day until the end of the day. And there was an article which he said, it's like my stepbrother's a bit more conservative libertarian. He's like, okay, it seems like an empathetic article to the protesters, but it wasn't inaccurate and stuff. But what he had told me is that night where the police had left was the first night everything was quiet. There were no helicopters, there were no like explosions or anything like that, and the city was quiet. Now, if you're the mayor of Seattle and all of a sudden, like over a day or two, you get 12,000 complaints from the police department, it's like, okay, maybe you change the tactic. She changed the tactic, and we are where we are now.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose what my real, because I haven't been able to get somebody that's slightly left of centre. I'm not saying that you're a leftist by any stretch of the imagination. Maybe you are, I don't know. But anybody that's slightly left of centre, how did you actually feel about the idea of anywhere, regardless of it being Seattle, deciding that they were going to become completely autonomous and separate, literally a form of segregation from the US? How did that actually make you feel as an American?
I actually tend to believe and have faith in a lot of the internet, in that I tend to believe that a Sonic fan probably came up with that. It's like, well, we're in Capitol Hill. It's like, well, we're autonomous. Yes, this is the autonomous zone, man, because we saw all the memes and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, folks were like, wait a second, that means we're seceding from the Union. That means that they can actually use military on our soil. And secession. Dun, 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 dun. Wasn't a good idea.
No, that's where I was going with that one, because I think that the ideas that they have about the police, about maybe redistributing some of the funding, though they should really come up with a better fucking slogan than defund the police. It should be reallocate funds. That way people can't go, you're trying to defund them. But again, some people are literally just trying to do that. There are nuances to every conversation, but let's try and use common sense to go after common sense ideas for a change, to try and keep things better.
I know. It's almost like educate instead of incarcerate.
No, I actually agree with. No. I actually agree with that. I actually think that there is a lot better way of trying to incarcerate people and trying to, why they're actually incarcerated, educate them if they are in that position to be able to go out of their own way to be able to get better lives. Because if all you're doing is incarcerating them and making them worse, having worse records, then I know people will go, but they shouldn't. But that's not how things work. it just perpetuates the same cycle. Yes, some people get rehabilitated by the fact that they don't want to go back to prison, but most they reoffend because they haven't got anything fucking else to do. So give them something else to do, they've got less chance of going back.
Well, I've heard idle hands do the devil's work, but then we get into the question of, oh, well, what are prisons made for? Are they made to protect society from people who would do them harm, or are they meant to rehabilitate? And
Can't
we'll
we
have
do
to save
both?
that for next time, and maybe get MC in on that, because I know him and I we tend to butt heads a little bit on that topic. But no,
Sure.
dude, thank you so much for hosting this, CSG. It's good to be back in the game.
Yeah, I'm more interested in doing real life politics. I'm actually going to be doing something on Saturday. I'm actually going to be talking to a party membership. So I'm going to be doing something with real life politics to try and get into actual real life politics. Because as much as I like talking on the internet about political strategies and political ideologies and so on and so forth, I find it all interesting. It does fuck all apart from piss me off because nothing fucking changes. So all I'm doing is bursting blood vessels, screaming at people that I completely and utterly disagree with because we're not talking. So why not just go off and actually do something? Which is one of the reasons why I'm not as active as I used to be on here. Though I'm still doing bits and pieces and whatnot. And I like to help memes out as well. And I can't wait to actually try and get this on because we're going to be trying to do this Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Yeah, that's the plan.
So that should be around about 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
It's 4 p.m. East Coast, 7 p.m. West Coast, and 9 p.m. Greenwich.
Yeah, it is. Yes.
Okay.
So if anybody wants to come by and even have a talk with me or memes, or talk to us about our positions and whatnot, then things are open. But we're happy for that. But we will be talking more about News Quest as well later on. Hopefully, we can have an update on Friday. What's going on? Some Facebook links and Discord links and stuff like that. Remember, the first 1,000 people that I'm sure that memes will put into the chat or into the actual description box down below. Links for all of that, so that way people can start joining in. First 1,000 people will get open access to everything that is there, and we'll continue to get that throughout its history as well. So sign up now while you can, and help actually make things much better in the idea of keeping things, level. If you have a thing about impartiality, be your own bloody reporter. Can't be more impartial than that, right? On that note, I suppose it's time to say goodbye. Do you have anything else left to say, James?
It was very well said, CSG. Again, it's great to be on with you again. We gotta get that little bit of pandering out and everything, just to cover all the bases and everything. Make sure folks are comfortable with us actually speaking to them and broadcasting on this internet and stuff and things. But that's the thing. If you want to go out there, it's just be the change you want. Will you see it overnight? What you want? Probably not, but the tallest mountain started as a stone.
Agreed with that notion. Again, anybody that wants to come and have a chat with us next time, please do. We're more than happy to have a chat with anybody. Though, if people start screaming and shouting, sure, we'll probably have a way of sorting things out. But generally, we're open for discourse because that's what we want. So anybody that wants to come and talk, please do. More than interested. Speak to you all again real soon. Bye-bye for now. Take care.